Welcome to the Lida Citroën Podcast, your space to grow your influence and elevate your personal brand. In each episode, you'll hear inspiring stories, expert insights, and practical strategies to help you stand out, lift up others, and leave your mark on your team, your community, or the world. If you're ready to make your voice heard, you're in the right place. Let's dive in.
Hello. Welcome to another episode of the Lida Citroën Podcast. If this is your first time here joining us, welcome. If you've been involved in one of the podcasts before, you've listened or shared it, welcome back. Really excited for today's conversation because I run into this a lot when I teach the idea of personal branding, reputation management, and influence skills. People constantly say to me, I just can't get comfortable with self-promotion. I just don't want to talk about myself. Nobody wants to hear me, right? I'm so afraid of being one of those arrogant people on social media who says, look at me, look at me, look at me. So I run into that a lot. And recently did a poll on LinkedIn where I asked my 33,000 followers, what are the biggest issues that they run into when it comes to personal branding? And the number one response, overwhelmingly, is self-promotion. How do I self-promote effectively? Number two was building influence and impact. And what was interesting in the poll is we got some feedback. And one woman shared that, it's actually her issue is closer tied to imposter syndrome. And she said, I have no problem standing by my personal brand until I have an opportunity to network with people in the industry I am working towards entering. I start to waver a bit and I don't quite know how to promote myself and my personal brand with confidence. And I was thinking back to, probably 10 plus years ago when I went to a conference and, I love networking. My husband says he just winds me up and lets me go because I just start talking to people. I start introducing people to each other. Like I love the art of networking. And I met this woman who was kind of off to the side. Those are great people to approach at a networking event, because they're grateful somebody is talking to them. And so I went and talked to her and asked her what she did, asked her about her business. And admittedly, it was a networking event tied to a conference. And there were a lot of industry heavy hitters in the room, kind of people with maybe some intimidating job titles and companies that they worked for. But I asked her, tell me about yourself. What do you do? And she said, well, it's not who I am today that's interesting. It's who I'm going to be. And I was like, what does that mean? What do you mean who you're going to be? And she said this almost like a secret, right? She was kind of whispering it. She said, I am here to figure out how I'm going to network in this room when I finally have the job title that I know I'm going to get. And I was so intrigued because I meet a lot of people. I've never had anyone introduce themselves to me this way. And I said, well, tell me more about that. And she said, I've been in the investment world. This was an investment conference. I've been in the investment world for a long time. And I've got the credentials. I've got the certifications. I've now got all the series 6 and 22 and all 7, all of them. And she said, but when I get to be the head of my department, managing director, she goes, I can't wait to walk into this room and have that business card and introduce myself to people because I will be legitimate. And that was the word that I hung on to. I said, what does having the job title and that credential mean in terms of legitimacy? And so we kind of unpacked that, and it got me thinking how many of us kind of wait until we feel legitimate, until we feel it's appropriate for us to extend our hand with confidence. And when I was talking to her in the moment, I said, what if you just pretended? I said, just pretend you have the job title. Now, obviously, your business card doesn't say that, but just pretend that you have everything that comes with that job title and that level of credentialing and credibility in your own mind. Just introduce yourself to people as if. It's a little bit of the fake it till you make it. But what I was trying to help her understand is the job title doesn't give you anything different in terms of clout and importance and worth and value to this audience. She could hold her own. She was putting all the weight on that job title. And I said, look, I challenge you. Just go introduce yourself to someone and be in the mindset of the person who has that job title. And over the course of, I think it was like an hour and a half networking thing, I would kind of out of the corner of my eye see her, and she kind of did carry herself differently, right? She wasn't hugging the wallpaper, as we call it, standing to the back of the room. She was in the room. And so was it just a matter of shifting the mindset? Was that what changed everything? Who knows? But I think a lot of times we feel that it's something external that's going to give us the confidence to self-promote. It's waiting until somebody says, now it's your turn. And that's why I wrote the book, The New Rules of Influence, because it isn't about waiting. We all have something in us that makes us special and unique and compelling and interesting and memorable and remarkable. So bringing that forward, sharing that goodness, sharing our gifts is what attracts people to us. It isn't a job title, because unless she's going to introduce herself every single time with that job title, which is obnoxious, then how are they going to know she has that job title unless she carries herself as someone who has earned her spot? So that's what got me thinking about today's topic. And I want to start off by talking about the idea of self-promotion, because it is uncomfortable for some people. And I get a question often that, is it just for extroverts? Right? So someone who defines themselves as an extrovert tends to be more outgoing, more social, more charismatic, supposedly. Someone who describes themselves as an introvert tends to be more reserved or conservative, more considerate before they contribute. And these are just general, almost stereotypes, right? Because we see anomalies all over the place. And I always say, when somebody self-describes themselves as an introvert or self-describes themselves as an extrovert, because I'm not putting labels on people. But we do have people who come to me and say, I'm an introvert, so there's no way I could walk into a room of people and just start talking to them like you do. And that's fine. We all have different gifts. But extroverts do not have an advantage when it comes to self-promotion, because one of the things, and I call myself an extrovert, one of the things extroverts tend to do is talk more than we listen. We're not the best listeners because we have so much to say and we just want to be sharing. So introverts, or someone who describes himself as an introvert, actually has an advantage in being more considerate and more intentional with what they contribute. And that can be a superpower, 100%. So I think we need to reframe the mindset around self-promotion. We need to be careful thinking of self-promotion as arrogance or boasting. Are those people out there? Of course they are. And there are also people out there who have so much to offer, who could add so much value to a conversation, who've got insights and perspective that is so important to decisions that are being made. And they're staying quiet. They're sitting in the back of the room, again, trying to hug the wallpaper to not be seen. And that's not a good thing. So we've got to reframe self-promotion. It isn't about screaming from the rooftops every time you do something good, but it can be about making sure people know who you are, what you can offer, and what you're looking for. And I think we got to get a little more comfortable with it. The world is loud. The world is competing for our attention. And putting one post on LinkedIn a month, or hoping someone will come up to you at a networking event and introduce themselves, or, sitting in the back of the room is not what gets it done anymore. We have to take a step forward. Doesn't have to be a mile, but we have to take a step forward. We have to be heard and we have to be seen. And that means we have to be visible. If you're active on social media, self-promotion does mean posting and commenting and engaging and joining groups and conversations and resharing pieces that really speak to you, but adding context. So I learned something about you when you reshare it. That's what it means in a practical way to self-promote. And then when you have something great to say, you got a new certification or you got a new job title, or you're just had a baby, something really exciting, people want to celebrate with you because they feel like they know you. So really important that we start getting visible. Let's talk about imposter syndrome for a moment. And we're going to have an upcoming program focused just on the topic of imposter syndrome because it is growing like wildfire right now. There are so many people at all different layers in the organization who are really struggling with the idea of imposter syndrome. And just for definition, the Oxford Dictionary defines imposter syndrome this way: the persistent inability to believe that one's success is deserved or has been legitimately achieved as a result of one's own efforts or skills. If you've experienced imposter syndrome, you know what this looks like. If you haven't, it might look like, they're going to figure out, I don't know what I'm doing here. Or I got the job, but I'm going to fail because there's no way I'm good enough to do that kind of work. It's all luck, right? When you congratulate them on an achievement and they say, oh, I'm just lucky, right place, right time. That's a form of imposter syndrome. And imposter syndrome gets its root causes in things like perfectionism, right? Never being good enough. Self-criticism, which is that awful self-talk where we're saying depreciating things to ourselves instead of lifting ourselves up. When we constantly compare ourselves to others, right? And watching how somebody else is doing it. That reminds me of that woman at that conference, right? She watched the people who had that job title speak to each other with confidence. And in her mind, when she would get that job title, she could do the same thing. Or society's expectations. Maybe you're at a point in your career where you're looking around going, I should be more successful. Other people that are doing my kind of work or raising my kind of family are doing it better than me. And so that's where imposter syndrome comes in. I will be honest and say, I haven't felt it in this way, maybe more than once or twice. And I don't think it's a false sense of confidence. And here's what I've questioned, is it because I've been very hesitant and systematic and intentional about the steps that I've made? I don't know. But I don't wrestle with this on a daily basis. And I'm putting that out there because if you haven't felt it, that's okay too. If you don't feel like you're not good enough, if you don't feel like you're going to get found out, if you don't feel those things, don't ask for something that is going to hold you back. I mean, it's okay. You might feel it in the future, right? And so there have been times where I'm keynoting a really big event, and ahead of time I might be thinking, oh boy, am I over my skis here, right? Do I really am I going to be able to do this? But I don't question that I should be there. And it's a way of kind of checking my humility and my humanity to make sure that I stay grounded in what I know how to do. Pushing through imposter syndrome really starts with reframing self-talk. And gosh, I mean, we should do a whole episode on the idea of self-talk because I can't believe some of the things we're telling ourselves. Just some of the negative, hurtful comments we tell ourselves, and what that does to our ability to lead, what it does to our ability to be present for our family, what it does to our ability to be a good friend. We've got to do something to stop that. It's just not healthy. It's not good. It just breeds all sorts of problems, and catching it early is definitely a first step. I'm not going to claim to be an expert on the psychology of negative self-talk, but I can tell you that I coach a lot of really senior people whose resumes would blow your mind. And they're telling me the things that they say to themselves before going into an important conversation or before having a meaningful one-on-one with one of their leaders or before making a decision. And I am blown away by how negative some of these comments are, and trying to reframe that and retool that and get it pointed in a better direction. Some of the things I will ask them to consider are finding mentors, right? I might be coaching them on their leadership strategy and personal brand, but find a mentor who does your job in a different company, a different department, who can guide you through some of that self-talk, somebody you really trust. The other thing I like to do is have them write a wins journal. And a wins journal, WINS, is kind of like a gratitude journal, but for some high level people, the gratitude journal hasn't worked. So we do a wins journal, right? What are the things in the last week or month or year that you've done that are outstanding? I mean, really outstanding. And it can be something I might not see as significant, but you see it as significant. Start writing those down. Start looking at them. Start reminding yourself, oh, that's right, I did all those things. That's pretty flipping cool. So yeah, I'm going to focus more on that. And I don't mean to trivialize this, but these are small things we can do to move the needle on how we talk to ourselves, because how we talk to ourselves is actually what leaks out into how we talk to other people about ourselves. So if I'm saying negative things about who I am and what I can do to myself, you think I'm really communicating with a lot of confidence when I talk to other people about what I can do? Of course not. They're picking up hesitancy. They're picking up a lack of confidence. So that self-talk is what starts that narrative chain. Very, very important that we work to retool that, reconfigure it. Your voice matters. My new book, The New Rules of Influence, shows you how to build long-lasting impact with authenticity, no tie or title required. Get your copy of the book today and start owning your voice. Personal branding relies a lot on our ability to project self-promotion, right? You can't be the best kept secret anymore. And I can't tell you how many times I hear that from people. I'm the best kept secret in real estate. I'm the best kept secret in, software engineering. I'm the best. Well, best kept secrets don't get raises. They don't get promoted. They don't get to lead key projects. They don't get to be on stage. Best kept secrets don't advance. So that visibility that we talked about earlier is really important to becoming less of a best kept secret and more of an intentional, visible partner to the opportunities that you really want to attract. We've got to stop thinking of ourselves as best kept secrets, because secrets stay in closets. That's a bad joke. But we don't value secrets. We value people who take risks. We value people who put themselves out there. We value people who are clear and concise and credible for what they can offer. That's what we value. And leaders need to be very clear. So another part of self-promotion that I love to focus on is the idea of the elevator pitch. And I got to tell you, every time I start talking about an elevator pitch and I'm teaching it in a workshop, I can literally see people's faces change in a form of panic, that I might go around the room and ask everyone to share their elevator pitch. I mean, it is literally, from my vantage point, I wish I could take a picture of it someday, because it is unbelievable. And so I do tell them, we're not going to practice elevator pitches unless it's a workshop. Then they know ahead of time they're going to do that, because it's terrifying to be put on the spot in front of a couple hundred people. But how you introduce yourself remember, is what other people are going to use to introduce you, right? So if you introduce yourself with confidence and clarity and intention and maybe some humor or whatever is your personal brand thing, then if I'm going to introduce you to someone else or even just speak about you to someone else, I'm going to use your elevator pitch to build that connection. So if your elevator pitch is lacking confidence or clarity or is overloaded with details that I can't possibly remember, that's kind of a negative impression. We want our elevator pitch, how we introduce ourselves, to be clear and concise and intentional and with enthusiasm. Now, there's 3 different kinds of elevator pitch. So one size does not fit all here, but there is some consistency throughout them. The first kind of elevator pitch is you literally step into an elevator, or you sit down next to someone on an airplane, or you stand behind somebody in line at Starbucks for a coffee, and the person looks at you and says, "Oh, well, what do you do?" Or, "Tell me about yourself." And you have no idea who this person is. You don't know if they're from your industry, if they know, kind of the background on the work that you know nothing about them. That's the first kind. The second kind is when you've been introduced to someone. So if Joe introduces me to Susan, now I'm meeting a stranger, but I get some background because Joe's going to tell me some things about Susan and why he thinks I should meet. And he's going to give me some backstory. And because I now have Susan's name, I'm going to look her up on LinkedIn. I'm going to see who she knows. I'm going to look at, what kinds of things is she interested in? Where has she worked? So when I have that first conversation with Susan and I introduce myself, I know something about her. So there's a little bit more context. The third type of elevator pitch is an interview, typically a job interview, whether it's for a promotion in your same company or a new company. And that's unique because, again, you have the name of the company, you hopefully have the name of the person you're interviewing with, and you have a job description. So your context is not the same as when you meet a stranger. It's not the same as when you've been referred to someone who's been told something about you and you have a little bit of context. Your elevator pitch when you first introduce yourself in a job interview is tailored specifically to the company, the person you're speaking to, and the job that you're applying for. It's very highly tailored. So let's look at the first 2. When you're meeting a stranger, you know nothing about this person. It's important to level set and help them understand what you do in layman's terms, because you don't know if they know your type of work. Some of us work in very technical fields. And if you're listening to this or watching this on YouTube and you work in a very, very technical field, or you're coming out of the military, which I run into that a lot, they have more acronyms than you can write a book about all the acronyms. If you start with that, you're going to confuse the person. They have no idea what you're talking about. So I always say the first thing you do when you meet somebody who's a stranger is you tell them what you do, but you do it in layman's terms. So I might not dive into influence building and impression management and personal branding, but I might start with, I run a marketing company out of Denver, Colorado, and I serve clients in over 38 countries. Because most people understand what marketing is. So I might start with something that's general enough, and then I go to the next part. And the second part is you tell them something about yourself. That's where I might dive down into, and when you hear marketing, you might think logos and graphic design, but actually what I do is I work with individuals, executives, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who are looking to build their personal brand, manage their reputation and impression, build thought leadership, and build influence with their teams. So I now drill down a step into the details, and I talk about why I'm passionate about my work. That's the second step. First, what do you do? Second, why do you do it? How do you do it? What's interesting about your work? The third part if you still have a moment, is give them a story, paint them a picture, or share an anecdote. Because what happens with stories is they really help us visualize what you do. So if you have an example you can share, that's great. Now, with the example of somebody being introduced, I'm going to tailor everything I say. My first, second, and third step, I'm going to tailor that to what I know about Susan. I might say, similar to you, I grew up in Los Angeles. It looks like we may have known some of the same people from back then. So I know something about her and I'm going to tailor it. The third one is the trickiest because that's a job interview. And it's less about like, let's get to know each other and more about why I'm a fit for the role. So in the third one, the steps are actually past, present, future. Marketing people, we all talk in threes: past, present, future. What is it about your past, the highlights of your past, that bring you to this job description, why you are so excited about this job at this moment, in this time, in this company? And then you paint a picture of the future. What will it look like of you in that role? And I'm going through it quickly. I know, we can put in the show notes, I've got more information about how these actually unpack, but they are different ways of introducing ourselves. And I want to make sure that I communicate they need to be a little bit exciting, right? Put a smile on your face. You're introducing you. It's a subject you should know. I didn't ask you hard algebra. I just asked you, tell me about yourself, or what do you do? So think about your elevator pitch in advance. Think about the way you're going to express your brand. Eye contact is really important. Even on a Zoom meeting or a Teams call, make sure you're looking at the camera, looking at the person you're talking to. Don't recite your resume or your, everything you've ever done. And heaven forbid you do it in reverse chronological order, because there's no way I can remember that. Nobody can. Give me the highlights. If I'm a stranger, give me the highlights that relate to me, knowing nothing about my background. If I've been introduced to you, give me the highlights specific to what you know about me. And if it's a job interview, very targeted to the company and the job. Very, very interesting. How we introduce ourselves really sets the stage for the relationship. So bring your best self, put a smile on your face, shake hands, be warm and approachable and professional, and see where the conversation goes. What we want to do when we self-promote is build a form of influence that lasts. Making a good first impression is part of that, but it isn't about being loud in every conversation. When we think about influence that lasts, we think about the people who are intentional and thoughtful about what they contribute. I'm part of conversations often where there's one person who is always adding something, always adding something. Whether I just said it or not, they're always adding something. And there's a way to do that that's elegant and professional and not obnoxious. This person does it in a way that's obnoxious. It's like literally, I want to say, I just said that. Why are you saying it again? But have an idea in mind when you go into a meeting. And then if I do say it first, build on it. As Lida was just saying, this, and this, and to build on that and then add something. Now your voice is part of the conversation and you've acknowledged that, yes, I said it first. That's okay. We're all in this together. And finally, to avoid the idea of coming across as arrogant or salesy, right? When you self-promote, there is a way to share your achievements. And it's tricky when you have a lot of achievements, right? Because you want to talk about them. I'm fortunate to be able to be invited to speak at some amazing conferences. And if I just put on social media or interject it into conversations, oh my gosh, I got to keynote this event. And oh my goodness, look at me. I got to speak at this event. Yeah, people are going to start tuning out and going, yay for you. What does that have to do with me? So wrap those achievements and announcements in value. Talk about, give me a snippet of what you're sharing in that conference. Talk about the value that you're delivering. I will get the impression, I will get the message that this is an achievement. But if everything's an achievement, I start to tune it out. So think about the audience. If it's on social media, wrap it in value. I've recently had an opportunity to speak at this conference. Here were some of the takeaways I delivered, and here's how the audience responded. Right? So now I'm learning what you shared and what worked. Right? So think about it. Use storytelling techniques. Talk about an experience you had at that conference. What did that conversation look like? What did you get out of that? If other people were part of your achievement, give them credit, tag them, call them out, celebrate their success and milestone. Maybe they're not good at self-promotion, and bringing them in is a way of rewarding them and acknowledging that I didn't do this by myself, right? I'm so proud of our team, and Susan, the way that you stepped up and took over when, the project was going sideways, and Adam, I'm so happy the way that we love to see leaders celebrate their team. It is such an endearing, empowering experience. Self-promotion does not have to be icky. It doesn't have to feel like you're standing on the rooftop screaming about your achievements. It shouldn't feel that way. But we need to get comfortable talking about ourselves. Learn how to introduce yourself to a stranger or to the CEO of the company. If you get in the elevator and the CEO of the company is standing right there, what are you going to say? Right? Are you going to just go, "Oh, nice weather we're having"? Well, maybe it is nice weather, but how are you going to go further so that you make an impression? The world is moving too fast. Things are moving at warp speed. We have very little attention span. So being intentional and thoughtful and specific about how you self-promote within your team, within your organization, within your community, and online, it does require strategy. I hope today's conversation gave you some things to think about, gave you some nuggets to start acting on. I would love to hear what you thought about what we shared. So be sure to drop comments into the comments below, and I will definitely read them, because I know self-promotion is uncomfortable. I know it is, but you will get more comfortable the more you do it. I'll look forward to seeing you on our next conversation. If you liked this program, please share it with somebody that you care about who could also benefit from a little guidance and maybe a nudge on self-promotion. In the meantime, I wish you health, happiness, and all good things.
Thanks for tuning in to the Lida Citroën Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow the show and leave a review. It helps more people discover these inspiring conversations. For more tools, insights, and resources, visit Lida360.com or connect with Lida on LinkedIn. Until next time, remember, your influence has the power to make a real difference.